Hi, I'm Eric Hultgren, and I'll give you a tour of the Hoops Visualize package, showing you how to run and compile the samples and prepare for doing some prototyping with the Visualize APIs. The first thing we have to do is download and install the Visualize packages. Launch your web browser and go to developer.techsoft3d.com. This will bring you to our developer zone where you can find information on all of our products. If you go to the Hoops Products pull down, you can select Hoops Visualize, and then on the left select the HPS API. This will bring you to the main download page where you can get downloads for your different OSs and also generate a license. If I click Windows, you'll see that it will offer all the different architectures we have available. I can pick one and select download and pull it down. Now I also have to pull down a license key, and this is important because it's going to give you access to the functionality inside Visualize. You're going to have to enter in your username and your password, which you can get from your partner development manager or through our support site. Once you're on the license page, you can simply scroll down to where you'll find your evaluation license string. You can also download the header files directly. I'm going to download both the C and the C# headers and put them inside my installation in the include directory. I'm going to do that for both files so that I can easily build both the C++ and the C# samples. One other thing to note is back on the downloads page, if you scroll down, you'll see an additional resources area. If I select this, you can see the Hoops demo viewer. This is a basic application which shows several of the Hoops products, including Exchange and Visualize, Publish, all working together in one application. This will give you the ability to easily play around with Visualize and see it in action with some of your test files. You can just download from this button to get the latest version of the demo viewer. Once you've downloaded the package, extract it to your hard drive. Let's take a look at what's included inside the directory. So in here, you're going to find a variety of tools to help you get started with Visualize. This is going to include our documentation, an include folder where you're going to put your license keys, obviously your binary and lib folders, and also samples and tools. Let's take a look first at the documentation folder. So this is going to include documentation for all of the Visualize APIs. Let's go ahead and open this up in our browser. And the first thing it's going to do is bring you to the technical overview. This is a good place to go to start to learn about Visualize. We cover how the internals work at a reasonably high level, and we'll also give you more information about specific features. So we'll scroll down. You can get an understanding of how our architecture is set up, segments, styles and portfolios, different kinds of geometry. As we scroll down, you start to understand some of the capabilities contained inside Visualize, things like bounding sections, clipping planes, spriting and splat rendering, IDOM lighting, etc. So you can go through and examine this and see which features are of importance to you. If we scroll back to the top of the technical overview, you can take a look at the menu that we have available. One thing to note is the search bar up top. This will search through programming guides, API references, and sample code for anything that you could be looking for. The release notes provide a quick overview of the major new features and bug fixes for the current and previous releases. You can also see what libraries Visualize is compatible with. If we go below the release notes, you can see we have an area for sample code, programming guides, and API references. Inside the programming guide, you'll find sections of information that teach you how to work with Visualize, starting with the scene graph and database and our API conventions, moving through geometry that you're going to insert into your scene graph, controlling how the views operate, styles, materials, and user interaction. We also have sections for rendering and rendering effects, and also for integrations with some of our toolkits, for instance, Hoops Exchange, Parasolid, or Hoops Publish. Back at the top, clicking on the API reference will show you both classes and functions for C++ and C#. Clicking through will give you an alphabetical listing of those classes, regardless of which language you want to look for. Now let's take a look at the sample code part of the documentation. This includes both samples and tutorials to help you work through different concepts inside Visualize. Clicking on samples will get you to a list of all the different code samples that are included in the distribution. Now let's go back to the installation and take a look at the included samples. Going into the samples directory, you'll see that we have lots of folders containing the code for the various samples and a solution file that if you double click will launch Visual Studio. Inside Visual Studio, you'll see lots of different samples, including integrations with various different toolkits. We provide samples for common interfaces like MFC, WPF, Wix, Qt, and OpenVR. Included alongside these are samples for both C++ and C#. If you open the C# samples folder, and then its subfolder, and double-click on any of the included samples, you'll see that we include the actual Visualize code so you can understand how to use Visualize inside your application. Let's go ahead and run one of these samples. If we go back inside the Solution Explorer, set the CS samples as your startup project. Then go to Properties. We're going to go into the Debug tab, and you have to enter two command line arguments, -t and a test name, and then -d and a driver. In this case, I'm going to fire up the interpolation sample, and I'm going to use our DirectX 11 driver. Once that's in, I can simply start without debugging. And Visualize pops up a standalone window showing you some different settings that we have for our interpolation of colors on meshes. Clicking that will exit us out, and we can get back in. Now let's take a look at our sandbox applications. The sandbox apps are basic standalone applications that are designed to let you load files, do basic operations on them, but also put your own code inside so that you can play around with Visualize. Let's select the WPF sandbox to be our startup and go ahead and run it. You can see we have standard controls and operators inside the sandbox app. Camera controls, zooming, selection, model browsers, segment browsers, and some additional other controls. Let's go ahead and load a sample file. And you can see Visualize is loaded in one of our sample data sets. And we can go through and we can actually look at this in hidden line mode. We can switch that back to smooth. And here you can see we have buttons that we can go inside the source code, add Visualize code inside here, and trigger it in real time once we rebuild the application. Now, let's put some sample code inside the sandbox app so you can see how it can be used for quick prototyping. Let's grab some code from one of the tutorials. I'm going to skip over the fundamentals and we'll go to applying materials. This tutorial will show you how to actually pull in geometry and change the properties of it. So let's grab the code, C# code from the first sample, copy that. We're going to open up the WPF sandbox, go to demo user commands. Okay. In this particular case, let's put our code inside user2 command. User1 command actually has a resource monitor for debugging. In this particular case, I've already put some code in with a path to my file. And let's go, and I've also put in sample code from later on in the tutorial below it in user command 3. Let's go ahead and run this, and you can see how we interact with it. Let's go ahead and run the sample. Start without debugging in release mode. And here's the sandbox. So as you can see, all the controls as we saw before. But this time, let's go to the user code. I'm going to click user code 2, and we've loaded in a block that I had saved off as an HSF file. Now let's go ahead and take the code from the second step of the tutorial, and we're going to change the material properties. Now we've made the face a different color, we've made them transparent, and we've changed the visibility of the edges. It's that simple to go ahead and use the sandboxes for quick prototyping. That brings us to the end of this Getting Started video. I hope you found this useful and that it helps with kickstarting your development with Hoops Visualize. For more information, please contact your consulting engineer or visit developer.techsoft3d.com.